Say, let's go ahead and start. We're anticipating a smaller group possibly today just because of the poor weather up in the north here, but want to welcome those of you who were able to join us today for today's School Counselor Network. This is the fourth one that we've had, and today we will be focusing on Future Ready. So you can link the presentation slides from the bit.ly or hit the from the bit.ly that's located on there. There's also a pre-survey if you get a chance and want to work on that now. Otherwise, we'll give you a little time in a minute. There's a QR code for that pre-survey on there. So once again, welcome. Today we will be talking about Future Ready, and we want to now give you a little time to work on that pre-survey, so you can either connect on the link on the survey or use the QR code that's there to answer those questions on the survey. And the link to the presentation is down in the left-hand corner. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that while others are jumping on before we start our day. So if you're just joining us, we're working on a pre-survey that will just ask you a couple questions about your knowledge around what we're going to be covering in today's School Counselor Network focus on Future Ready. So you can connect either using the QR code or the link that's on the presentation and the slides. You can access by connecting to that bit.ly that's down in the left-hand corner. So hopefully you can access that. If you have any questions or need any help, just let us know through chat, or you can unmute and we can help you out. We'll give those who just joined a couple more minutes to complete that pre-survey before we get started.
The QR code says that it has been deactivated.
So are you able to connect it? Can you get onto the bit.ly and do it then? Wonder, is anyone else having trouble with this QR code?
Yeah, when I try to do it with my QR, it says it's been deactivated for some reason.
Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully you can access it through the other method. I'm not sure what happened there. It was working earlier, so I don't know how it got deactivated. Sorry about that.
What's the other method to access it?
So get on to the slides and then click where it says pre-survey.
I did also put it in the chat.
And it's also in the chat. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, sorry. When I tested that, it works. So sorry that it's been deactivated. So I'll give you another minute to complete that pre-survey, and then we'll get started with today's topic. So let's go ahead and begin. So welcome again to our school counselor network. Here's a reminder of who the counselor supports are. So we are pleased to be bringing these to you every month as a way for you to connect with other counselors, as well as to share some information that's going on throughout the state that can be helpful to you as a counselor. So these are the people who are here to support you as a counselor in your AEA. So feel free to reach out to us if you have questions or any way that we can support you in your work. So we're going to start off with a chance for you to connect with some people through breakout rooms. And this is going to also be a chance to kind of connect with a little bit on our topic today of Future Ready. So can assume that if you're a school counselor, you probably earned a college degree. So as you reflect on that experience, share with those in your breakout rooms, what are some positive memories you have of that? What are some struggles that you faced with that experience? How were you able to overcome those challenges? And as you think about the students that you serve and how things are today, what might be some reasons some of your students struggle more than others after high school? So as we're thinking about supporting Future Ready, we want you to think a little bit about your own experience and how that may relate to some of the students that you serve. So when you get into your rooms, make sure that you get a chance to introduce each other, get to know you, and then spend a little time discussing some of these questions as you think about your own experience through college, the positives, the struggles, how you overcome those, and how that may connect to the students you serve. So we'll go ahead and Chuck will put you into breakout rooms. You can select those and we'll give you about 8 to 10 minutes to introduce one another and discuss these in your breakout rooms. What we're going to work on today is just talk a little bit about what Future Ready means. Think about your role as a counselor in supporting Future Ready, whatever level you may be. We hope that you see your role in Future Ready support vital to your students. We're going to look at some data sources that can help you as you support that, and then look at some things you can do through the MTSS process to support Future Ready in tiers 1, 2, and 3. So that's really what we're going to focus on today. So as you think about Future Ready and what it means, we want you to really connect back with your groups and come up with your own definition of or vision statement of what it means to be Future Ready. So you can have one person in your group capture your conversation on the document that's linked there in the presentation slides. So when you get back into the same breakout groups that you're in, identify somebody that's going to capture your thoughts on your vision of Future Ready and put those in the document. So we'll connect you right back into those same breakout rooms to have those discussions to discuss your definition of Future Ready. So Chuck, you can send them back in unless anyone has any questions before we go. All right, you can head back into those same rooms. Hopefully you become familiar with those people and work on your definition of what it means to be Future Ready. As you think about what you see from other groups, what stands out to you? What thoughts do you have as you look at what other groups have put or what your own discussions were around Future Ready? Who would like to unmute and share some thoughts?
I'll unmute and share.
Thank you.
Well, we talk about being future ready, and I think that we're talking about career ready. Is that correct? Well, I think it is. I think it is. And so when the state, we talk about college and career ready. The focus is on college ready without being career ready. That's how I view that. And I think high school, at least where I work, high school should be about helping students be career ready. Because you can't put the cart before the horse and get them college ready without being career ready. That's what I think. And as a result, if we can better assist students with the process of being career ready, then the educational training necessary for that career will better fall into place, right? And we'll get more and more students focused on, well, this is really the area I think I want to go in. This is the training what I want to do versus, oh, well, everybody else goes to college. I'm going to go to college and I'll figure things out there. But the focus has got to be on high school. School's about getting kids career ready.
Yeah.
That's for what it's worth.
Yeah, great thoughts, Mike. Appreciate that. And, one of the arguments I've heard that kind of connects with that is that nearly everyone's going to have a career, but not everyone's going to go to college, right? And so we need to think more about it from the sense of the career aspect. And then if college is part of the training that they need for that career, then we want to make sure they're prepared for that. But it's that college is there for the end goal of helping prepare for whatever career they would need afterwards. So thanks for those thoughts. What other thoughts do we have?
Our group talked about soft skills, which, we look at some districts are building their profile of a graduate. They're doing that work, profile of a graduate. And Cedar Rapids did it a few years ago, and I was on that committee when we kind of put that together. But after thinking about it and talking about it in my breakout room, and I was listening to that fellow talk about college or career ready. As an elementary school counselor, I think about my responsibility as getting kids to be community ready. Right. And I just thought of it just while we're on this call, but like community ready, like, what do I have to be, what skills do I have to be in my community, to be working at Wendy's or to be, doing FAFSAs or, all the things, but at a K-5 level, right. I'm just thinking about getting them ready to be able to have teamwork, problem solving, all of those things. And so that's kind of what I think about when I think about future ready, like just be ready for whatever that future holds and trying to get kids off their screens and into conversations and interactions with other people. Because I think that's when I grew up, I had soft skills because that's what we had to do. But now kids don't have to have soft skills because all they have to have is this, right? So I think that's a big part of my responsibility as a school counselor.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And I do think as we have these discussions about Future Ready, that the skill development is a key piece to this, right? It's ensuring that students have the skills they need to be successful, whatever path life will take them afterwards. And I like that thought of community ready. I've heard it a lot, life ready, whatever to have those skills to be successful in life. So thank you for sharing that. Let's have one more person share their thoughts around their discussion around this idea of the definition or what it means to be future ready.
Our group also talked a lot about just those resourcefulness skills, being resourceful. So we didn't really focus on really many of the academic skills that are needed for post-secondary, but really just resourcefulness, how to advocate for yourself and how to, ask questions and figure things out without somebody telling you or giving you direction.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing and having those good discussions. As I was looking at the document, it was really good to see there were a lot of parallels, yet things are a little different along how we view future ready. And I think that's true even across the state as we think about some initiatives that we have around that. And in the AEA, we have a future ready task force that's been tasked with the responsibility of supporting future ready work through the AEA system to our districts. And we had to come up with our own vision of what future ready is. So this is what we landed on, and I think it does connect pretty well with some of the thoughts that you had, but it's really about, as we put it, helping students acquire those knowledge, skills, and dispositions that can help them be successful, in whatever phase life takes them, but also knowing that that is constantly changing. And so we can't just prepare students for specific careers. We've got to prepare them to have skills that can be transferable to a variety of careers. So that's what we've landed on as a state, and how we really try to envision how we support this work. There's also quite a few other initiatives in the state of Iowa that are supporting the work around Future Ready.
Mark,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pause you for a second. I'm not sure you see chat. Do you think you're sharing screen right now? I'm not sure if you realized you're not sharing screen right now.
Okay. Nope. I thought I was. There.
Stop during the
Sorry
last
about
breakout.
that. Can you see it now?
Thanks. Nope.
It says that I am. Share screen.
Now it's sharing. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right. All right. So hopefully you had a chance to see here's the definition of our Future Ready vision that I was just discussing there. And then these are some of the other initiatives in the state of Iowa that support that work. So you can see in the middle, it has the Future Ready Iowa department goals for the Department of Education and how they view Future Ready. You can see the Future Ready Iowa initiative that supports the notion that we need 70% of our workforce having education and training beyond high school by 2025, and all of the initiatives that have supported that work, including the Last Dollar Scholars Program, as well as focus on getting apprenticeship opportunities and lots of other things around the state. So a lot of work is all flowing together to try to help support our students and our workforce being future ready. So there's also a lot of efforts that have been done to define and measure future readiness. So that college and career readiness definition, I'm not going to click on that, but if you're not familiar, a few years ago, the state of Iowa created a definition of what it means to be college and career ready, and it put it into 4 outcomes. So it starts with the essential content knowledge, transition skills, and then some of those more essential skills that you talked about. So learning skills and cognitive strategies, and self-understanding and engagement strategies. The AEA, as I mentioned, has the support that we provide, and we look at that through helping students think about data, transition, partnerships, rigor, and relevance is the core services and supports that we provide around Future Ready. And I mentioned the Future Ready Iowa. There's also a couple of other initiatives that have looked at what are those predictors of what it means to be future ready. And the CCRS one starts with early childhood predictors all the way up to high school and beyond. So that's a good one to look at if you support the elementary level. It has some good things to think about what you're doing to support at those levels and how you're measuring it. And then the Redefining Ready looks at measures that support the academic, the career ready, and the life ready. So those are really good resources. If you have the time to look into those, encourage you to think about that. So the next thing we want you to do is just think about, as you support Future Ready, what do you do as a school counselor to support that? So as we talked about what it means to be future ready, we talked about career ready, we've talked about life ready, we've talked about the skills that are needed. So you can go onto the Jamboard. There's a separate one for elementary and secondary. If you're in the middle school level, or if you support all, just choose which one you want to go to. And on page 1, just create some notes that that show what you do as a school counselor to support Future Ready. So we're gonna give you a couple minutes, go to the Jamboard of your choosing and just enter a couple of those things that you do to support Future Ready. Here's the elementary one. So take a look at some of those, and then in a minute, I'll click over to the secondary, and you can look at those, and just want you to see like what similarities or differences do you notice from what people are putting in how they support students at the elementary and the secondary level through Future Ready. So what thoughts do you have around what you notice between similarities or differences in those?
I see an emphasis on the interpersonal relational skills at the K-5 level. Not that it's not happening in high school, but when you get to the higher levels, you have to shift your focus to more of that, literally that life planning stuff. So, you know, it's life skills early on, and then life planning as they go older. That's just what I think I'm seeing.
Oh yeah, good way to put that. Life skills and then life planning. I like those thoughts. Good thoughts. What are other people seeing? What other thoughts do you see as you look at this work and how it progresses from elementary to secondary?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question, please, Mark?
Yeah, just what do you notice between either similarities or differences between what we see in the elementary and the secondary in how counselors see their role to support Future Ready, what they're doing? So there's the elementary, there's the secondary. I would say either we have a lot more people who are secondary who are on this call, or it's a lot easier to put and think about what you're doing to support that work in there at the secondary level. And my guess is we probably have more people that are in the secondary level that are on this today, but I do see, as you know, was put earlier, that really focusing on those life skills seems to be the focus that happens at the elementary level. There's a little bit on some things that look at career focus in some of this, but it's really about that life skill focus that we see at the elementary level, and then moving more into thinking about careers, supporting planning for that at the secondary level. So good job on that as you think about the work that you do. So as you continue to think about that, we want to think about how we're supporting this work through the lens of MTSS, or the, as we learned if you were at the October meeting, MTMDSS. So as you reflect on that learning from October or other learnings that you've had around MTSS, just put in the chat for us a short definition of what MTSS is in the chat. And as you look at those definitions or thoughts on MTSS as they come in, just note if there's anything that's missing or anything that we need to include as we think about MTSS. So go ahead and drop in the chat. What a short definition, what is MTSS? You can even put what does it mean? Or would love to see some people if they remember the MTMDSS. What is that? Yeah, good. We have some stuff coming in. So there's different levels of intervention, levels based on specific needs. Intentional and direct support to meet the needs. Good. Good. And Chuck put in there the 3 tiers. So there's multi-tiered and then the multi-domains, which includes the 3 domains of support for school counselors. So in October, we had the video that talked about the multi-tiered, multi-domain systems of support. So we've got the tier 1 or the universal supports that are provided to all students. The tier 2 targeted interventions, which are usually done in a group of students who are not meeting the target that you're looking for those students for that particular lesson or focus. And then the intensive for those students who need even additional support. And then the multi-domain looks at the 3 domains of school counseling. So what are you doing to support each of those tiers as a counselor for academics, college and career, and social emotional? So as you think about that, I want you to return to those Jamboards. And for the universal tier for elementary or secondary, what do all students need to know and be able to do to be future ready at that universal level? As you think of all your students, as you go back to what you thought about with the definition of what you think, what we think future ready means, what do all students need to know and be able to do to be future ready? So enter those into the Jamboard on page 2. So up at the top, you can click on to page 2 and put in what all students need to know and be able to do. I love the Kenny Rogers, the gambler right here. It's awesome. So as you continue to put those in, take a look at what you see between the elementary, the secondary, even within the secondary and the elementary themselves. What are some commonalities, some themes that you see, and maybe some ahas that you see, and drop that into the thought. So commonalities or themes that are starting to emerge as you think about what all students need to be able to know and do to be future ready. Drop some of those thoughts into the chat if you've had a time to put in your thoughts on what students need to know and be able to do. So you can look back and forth between the elementary and the secondary, and what themes are emerging. I like that, Bree, the realization that you're teaching future ready skills without even knowing it. And we get that a lot when we start to look at these skills, is that sometimes we're doing it without even thinking about it. But what can we do to be even more intentional and identifying those students maybe that don't have those skills at the same level, and what can we do to help support them and really make sure students are getting it? So most are SEL. Yep. Yeah, what other themes, commonalities, or ahas that come up as you look at these, or what you're doing to support, or what all students need to know and be able to do, rather? Good thoughts on all that. And if you have more thoughts, feel free to add those in. So the next thing we're going to think about is, as we think about the tier 2 and tier 3, and one of the things we want to think about is, how do we know whether or not students are meeting those, do they have what we say they need to know and be able to do to be future ready? How are we measuring those things? What data are we looking at? And also, what support are we providing those students? So I'd like you to go back into the Jamboards on page 3 of your respective Jamboard. You're going to enter in what data you can use to determine who might need additional supports. And in page 4, you'll put down what might be some interventions that you can provide to support students who need those supports. So we'll give you a few minutes to do that on each of those, page 3 and page 4 of the Jamboard, the data and the interventions. after you've had a little bit of time, yeah, now looks like now we're starting to put in some of those interventions. And even think about, are there some outside resources that you use to help with some of this work? And be sure to look back at some of the things students need to know and be able to do, and see if there's anything that you're missing on there that you can put either data that can help support that, or resources or interventions that you could do to help support that. As you're finishing up this up, take a look at what some of your other counselors have put for either data or support. And if you have any questions about that, if there's anything that's not familiar to you, either enter that in the chat so someone can elaborate on that, or unmute and go ahead and ask that question so that we can maybe have an opportunity to learn from one another. So what questions do you have, or anything you want to, maybe there's something that you do really well around this and you want to share with others, elaborate. Feel free to share with us or ask questions of each other about this if you have questions. So not hearing any questions, we'll go ahead and continue on here. As you think about this work, I think it's really important to make sure that we are thinking about, like, how do we know whether or not students are doing what we say they need to do to be able to be future ready. So, someone mentioned the profile of a graduate or portrait of a graduate. That's a really good resource, a really good tool that a lot of schools are using. It helps identify what are some of those skills that students need to be able to master by the time they leave our schools, and how are we making sure that students have those, and what are we intentionally doing to support those. So that's just one resource, one way approach that schools are doing to get at that, but there's quite a few others, as you see from what was put in there. As we think about future ready data, we've linked some different sources on here. As a state, we are not lacking for data around some of this work, and your access to it. There's a lot of ways that you can access it. The Iowa School Performance Profile has a wide variety of data in there, including You can look at your school's attendance and chronic absenteeism. You can look at the post-secondary readiness index. So what percentage of your students are taking the ACT? What percent are scoring 22 or higher composite on the ACT? You can also look at a lot of stuff around academic performance and what goes into your ESSA score for your school. There's a lot of data around behavior. You guys put a lot of screeners in there. The conditions for learning is another way that you can look at what you're doing to support students in the school environment. We have the prep dashboards in EdInsight, which are full of a lot of information, primarily about what your students are doing and after they leave your school. So are they going on to post-secondary? Do they have intentions? Are they enrolling, persisting, and completing? And you can look at that from a variety of demographics. And the Iowa Post-Secondary Readiness Report shows those post-secondary trends, as well as a lot of other data around post-secondary enrollment that can be looked at by the district level. Someone mentioned in there FAFSA completion. So you get the high school counselors are getting weekly FAFSA completion reports. You can also go in here to this link and look at on a weekly basis how your FAFSA completion compares to other districts in the state, as well as your own from the year before. And then the Iowa Student Outcomes looks at a lot of what are our outcomes look like primarily for students after they leave our schools. So what are our community college enrollment and persistence levels look like? What is the workforce development? So there's some really good data in there. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go into each one of those, but if you're interested in digging into this, the AEA has post-secondary readiness and equity partnership, so AEA Prep. Each AEA has a prep lead. That would be a good person to tap into to help you go through that. And one thing that we've done at the AEA level, and Prep has kind of taken the lead on this, is creating these future ready data summaries that are available for all school districts. So this is what it looks like for the state, but your district would have this same information in there. So at the top, we have the prep trend lines. So the intention, enrollment, persistence, and completion levels. And it also looks at all the way from preschool participation to academic performance, including ISASP and healthy indicators. And then looks at your conditions for learning, and it compares it to the state. So this is the state data, so it's going to be right with there. But yours, you would be able to compare what yours looks like to the rest of the state in each of these areas. So it also looks at percentage who've completed their ICAP, percent who've graduated, FAFSA completion, and then those post-secondary readiness index measures. On the back of this, there's some guiding questions that you can ask using the steps of the continuous improvement. So really good resource and way to go systematically through this to identify what you need to focus on. Also on the back is a definition of what each of these sources are, as well as a link to the source so you can dig deeper and look at some of this information by sort it by different subgroups and just have a better understanding of what this data is that you're looking at. So this is a great resource. Your prep lead, or for many of you, your school counselor lead is also your prep lead. So I think about 5 of us have that throughout the state. But reach out and they can help you get access to this really good resource that can help you really know how your students are doing. And it's important to use that data. So I'm going to turn it over to Erica Wood-Schmidt from the Department of Education, who really helps support the career and academic planning And she's just going to walk through a little bit on career and academic planning and the ICAP, but thinking about this, like what you can even do at the elementary level to support career and academic planning. Even though the ICAP is 8th through 12th grade, there are some things you can be doing to think about how you're supporting students around these essential components even earlier than that. So I'll let Erica go ahead and take over from here.
Absolutely. So hopefully, can you guys see my screen? Because I'm trying to transition over from Mark's screen. So as Mark was saying, my name is Erica Witchmans. I am fairly new to the Department of Ed. And so my area is career and academic planning. I am a longtime high school counselor. And so it's a new position where the DE is really kind of looking at how do we continue to help strengthen and support all areas of the career and academic planning process for our students. For most of you, you kind of took a look at what Mark had on there earlier about the 70%. That is still the idea that we need to get more of our students in a position where they are career ready and future ready in there. And one area is supporting the DCAP plans that help support students for ICAP. As Mark mentioned too, please elementary school counselors, stay with me. I promise we absolutely need you at that secondary level. As we saw from those Jamboards and certainly from your information, you are masters of really those skills that all students need to be prepared. And so I will talk a little bit more about that. As we get started, I just want to clarify a couple terms. So the DCAP is the District Career and Academic Plan. That is the document that the outlined team within a district creates to help support the ICAP, or the Individual Career and Academic Plan. The ICAP is outlined in legislation. So we know every year, 8 through 12, we have to do these certain pieces that go into it, and they are clarified within that. So from what we know we need to do for our students surrounding ICAP, the DCAP team, or the District Career and Academic Plan team, helps to support students in that. You'll see on the screen kind of what those talk about. And certainly we know that these are different terms that we'll certainly hear some people use different terminology surrounding these. And so I just want to kind of clarify, especially surrounding that District Career and Academic Plan. Sometimes you'll hear it called the Career Guidance Plan. And so the reason that I make sure that I clarify that I want it to be the Career and Academic Plan is that this is not the counselor's job. This is not your job alone. That is a team, and the team has actually been clarified also in legislation as to who needs to be a part of this. And so we're making sure that we kind of remove that piece and that we're going to call it that DCAP. That is the District Career and Academic Plan on how we are supporting students within their individual and career and academic plan. From that same venue, we also are going to hear the common phrase, it's the 4-year plan. The ICAP is the 4-year plan. And while the 4-year plan is part of that, there are several other areas that are in this as well. And we've also added 2 more with the addition of work-based learning and FAFSA advisement into the individual career and academic plan. I also would encourage you to think about that this not just a 4-year piece, that this is looking at students over a number of years. This is their plan forward. And that students need to have the understanding of where they can have on-ramps and off-ramps that allow them to make choices, whether it's in their high school as well as in that post-secondary pathway, whatever they're choosing to do, that they have a good idea as to what this looks like. This document should be a living document. That district plan that you are putting together and that you're working with your district team on should be a living document, meaning that it helps support students. And it's not just something that is well, we have to do this because the DE tells us we have to, and you have to turn it into the RPPs, but we really don't. The reality is you are doing fantastic things for your students in this area. The DCAP is a way in which you can capture that, you can look at it, you can evaluate it, you can use it as a tool to continue to grow and develop this over the course of time. What we know about our young people right now sitting in our schools is they have the potential to live to be 100 years of age. Scientifically, we've got some great advances. We're doing phenomenal things. So we know that these young people could potentially have 40 to 50 years of working life. So we understand that it is not the generations prior. I'm pushing upwards of upper 40s. And so certainly I remember the very limited career information that I was given as a student. And certainly we know that is not what's happening now. And so creating a document that lives and breathes and helps support students, and it does so not just in the counseling office, but in your cores, in your CTEs, into your encores, and all through K-12. this should be a way in which you as a district say, we support our students. We know that we want to give them the tools that they can make those choices and those differences for careers that have not yet been invented, because we know these young people, as they live and work, they are going to have to go back and get additional support and training. They are going to have to consider other opportunities, and that one particular pathway could lead to 100+ different careers. So just kind of giving that clarification underneath that part. Getting a little farther into this, we have updated the district career template. So this is the document that is used for teams to kind of create. You can see how we have changed that. Here's a copy of it right here. The reasons for those changes, let me see if I can get it to go back here, sorry, is we wanted to make sure that it created a lot more clarification. No, from the standpoint, from an elementary piece, we are going to add you on this next year. In terms of, there is a page in there, if you want to take a look at it through this link here, it gives you the very first portion, has you write down who is on your district team, because that's the first thing to consider. Do you have the right people at the table? An elementary, middle school, we need you at that table. And so you will be added to this. You will not be a requirement, because we do not want to put it into a piece where you must create and capture data and do additional pieces, because you are already doing so much fantastic work in this area, that we just want to give you an additional piece as a district team to say, we really value what is happening K-12 in this area. So you will be added into this piece, but the rest of this district plan really looks at how do we overwhelmingly support our students in our ICAP. This is also new for this year. Many of us will have gotten a very small, 4-question little bubble from our district office saying we need you to fill in these boxes for how many students have completed their 5 essential requirements or 5 essential elements. How many of you have had them review or revise their ICAP? And we put those little boxes in there, we send it back to our district office, and it gets reported to the state. We needed to expand that because it was not capturing the data correctly. So especially within the 5th question, originally where you see those 5 essential components, it had them all 5 together. And so it was very kind of cumbersome to really track how you are able to, how many kids are doing self-understanding but not doing post-secondary exploration, and how many are doing this and not doing this. So for next year, this is what the template will look like. We have this already into our data team. They are beginning the process to update that reporting system. So it's in September. September is when the districts will enter this information. It will now look much longer in this, and hopefully that will help to begin to capture that data rather than trying to combine several areas together. You will see those 2 additions that are on there, which include the work-based learning and the FAFSA advisement. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about those in terms of what that needs to look like for our students. So work-based learning, this is the exact verbiage of how it was added into the ICAP requirements, that it's to identify the coursework and work-based learning needed in grades 9 through 12 to support the students' post-secondary education and career options. So this work-based learning piece, Christy Valesky is your resource at the DE. She has some fantastic guides that are linked right in here. The work-based learning guide, of course, is certainly one to start with. There are also some additional resources to begin looking at. How do you begin putting more work-based learning components in this? And it is not just apprenticeships, that is not just job shadows, but this whole continuum of awareness, exploration, preparation, and training that goes into those different pieces. And you can of course see that that's where you see those developing of career skills that we have talked about with our throughout this conversation, as far as the idea of soft skills and the professional skills, and how do we begin incorporating those into all of our pieces moving forward so our students are career focused and career ready. And of course, reach out to Christy. I do have some resources on a final slide. Christy is actually going to put together webinars, a series of webinars aimed at districts to really help support them surrounding all areas of this. And so that's a tool that's in there for you for additional information. And so considerations for your team. Where are you already putting work-based learning? Where does it already exist? And so there is a link in here to a planning worksheet. It is the embedding planning worksheet. So if there are already courses that have speakers, how can you continue to embed this? Or if there's already a job shadow component or already an opportunity for students to work in connection with an industry, how are those fully being developed into your coursework K-12? And certainly then how can that be reflected in your DCAP template? So where's already happening? Where are some additional supports that come into this? And how is work-based learning happening across K-12? And so please consider taking a look at some of those resources and if possible, joining some of Christy's support webinars for that. The other addition is FAFSA advisement. There are states that have gone to requiring this as a graduation requirement, and there are certainly some pros and cons to that. The state of Iowa did not want to go in that direction. They stated it this way, how it's highlighted in green. So this is what comes out of the legislation. Prior to graduation, advise the student on how to successfully complete the free application for federal student aid. And the reason they did this is because they did not want the focus to be solely on the end game as far as completion of that document of the FAFSA, but rather that it is a continuous process. So considering what do all students need to know and understand surrounding everything financial aid, everything, whether it's scholarships, that they have the opportunity for these fantastic last dollar scholarships, that the Iowa tuition grant is accessible to them, that there's all of these great resources available. And so certainly looking at how does FAFSA advisement play into your entire DCAP process and your ICAP process for your student is something certainly to look at. And you are already doing these. So how are you able to really fully move those forward and develop it? You saw in the data points that were shared, you can drop down menu on that post-secondary readiness data and really get a good sense as to what students are filing, what groups are filing, what does that mean long-term? Because we know it's one step that helps students move forward in whatever post-secondary area that they are considering going towards. And we often will hear, well, my student doesn't want to go and do this. But I'm going to reference back to that. These young people could live to be 100. They are going to have to go back to school. So at some point, whether it's at 18 or at 28, they may need to know how to complete this or to have the vocabulary and the capacity to move themselves in a direction that utilizes resources so that they can continue to move forward as they grow and develop into their career areas. Of course, I'm asking that it be developmentally appropriate. And by this, I mean, no, your 8th graders do not need to be creating an FSA ID, but they do need to have the terminology that surrounds financial aid and the understanding of what that means for them and how they're able to get themselves forward. I do think that from the standpoint, we know in our data that there are a lot of our young people who are not moving on to post-secondary, whether that is a certificate or a diploma at our community colleges or an associate's degree, or that 4-year or greater educational path. We know that they're not doing that, but we know that we need to have them doing that to continue to support and make a viable state. And so considering what can students know and understand, because we need them to know that it's not an end game. I think we've done a great job in this country of making sure that students and families are aware of the problems associated with debt and loans that go around there, but we have not necessarily done a very good job of saying, but there are other ways to support and finance and move forward. And so kind of getting that conversation available and out there for students. So these are just some considerations within there as to what you could put into that DCAP template that continues to add FAFSA support and FAFSA advisement into your ICAP process for your students. So what is already being done? What does the data tell you? Who are you missing? I saw a number of you put on there that weekly report that is sent to you from Iowa College Aid. And what are some students who need some additional support? That's exactly, you are already doing it. So please continue to take those steps. And then what should students and families know and understand surrounding financial aid and the connection to FAFSA? And how do you utilize and provide some of those resources? There's terrific ones. Certainly ICAN, Iowa College Aid, terrific resources, the Latino Access Network for our students who need some resources in Spanish. So utilizing those, providing those information to those families, continue to support. See if we can get this to go. So this is kind of my slide that I put in here about this K-7 grade. Please, please, we need you. We have a program we're looking at, Meaningful Career Conversations. There are some resources and a slide later on here that look at using some of those conversations within that elementary setting. We know we need some vocabulary. It is too late for our young people to get into high school and not have some vocabulary surrounding work and future and career, whether it's understanding that all of those skills, the social emotional skills that you are teaching them. And so I did put in there extending ICAP into elementary and outlined in DCAP. Please consider joining that DCAP team. We also really, please consider your data, especially your math and your reading proficiency, and how that applies from a long-term standpoint. There is so much data that surrounds where students we see success. For example, Iowa right now leads the nation in current enrollment courses, meaning that more of our students are taking and coming out of high school with college credits than in any other state. But one area we know is happening is that we are not seeing that access across all of our populations. And in part, we are seeing that because we have students that are moving into that secondary area that are not proficient in math or in reading, and that makes it very difficult for them to access those additional resources. We know there's a website that you have here in the state of Iowa that will tell you what percentage of your students take Algebra 2, which is considered the minimum for college success. And we know that math beyond that Algebra 2 component, whatever that math looks like, does increase college success from that standpoint. So helping to bring our students to that point is certainly something to consider. And so knowing where they're coming from, knowing how we can get them there. And certainly focusing on the essentials element number 1, which is self-understanding, and essential element number 2, which is that career exploration at that K-12, absolutely. And several times this has been talked about, but development of those professional skills. This is really where the elementary and middle school shine in terms of being able to understand and help students make the connections between those personal skills that they have and how those are long-term in terms of the emotional regulation, ability to communicate, self-advocacy, the ability to work with others. I just read an article this week that talked about how we are down to, it's like less than 30% of businesses and large scale businesses are saying that they care about GPA. They are overwhelmingly saying, we care that a student has the ability to communicate, to work with others, to have cultural competency, to be able to emotionally regulate themselves. We can teach them the other pieces. And so whether or not you call it soft skills or professional skills, there's now a movement to call them durable skills or transferable skills, whatever those are. We need that input and that piece that our students are bringing. And that very much came out in the Jamboard in there as well. And certainly helping students to understand how they need to reflect. So this is a career area I may be interested in, or a pathway I might be interested in. How does that apply to me? How does that work within what I see long-term? We also know that this generation, the 6 through early 20s, they are very focused on lifestyle, and that a career fits within their lifestyle rather than their lifestyle fitting into a career. So if we begin as counselors and as professionals to really begin to, how do you help students understand that career and lifestyle go together, but that one is not going to overtake the other? Because I think we lose students when we do that. And we absolutely know that students who have an idea as to where they want to go professionally, post-secondary, they are more likely to show up. They are more likely to be engaged in your classrooms. They are more likely to not have their attendance issues, and they are more likely to graduate and keep going in that area and return back to your communities productive. I'm going to turn this over to Sue.
I'm just going to share real quick, and Erica, if you can pop through the slides. We're winding down on our time, so just a few things for you to consider. How are we engaging students in that universal tier 1? Who is getting everything, as Trish Hatch often says, just because they're breathing? And what connections are you making? Then as you move into tier 2, what scaffolds do some students need? This is where we start to align pathways for kids and have small groups for kids that are looking for that, some special accommodations. And then of course, using your data, what do students in this area need? And finally, in tier 3, maybe a more personalized pathway, maybe some specific needs, some specific ongoing support as we continue up those tiered levels of responses. I would also say that for many of you, you aren't using all the data that's available in your career information system. When I can take a look at all of those, whether you're using Cooter or Naviance or whatever it is, It is amazing the kinds of supports, the kinds of reports, the kinds of information that's available there. And I would encourage you to take a look at those. Then looking at that career domain, here's some questions for you to ponder. What are some things that you can do to help students become more future ready? What is this district already doing, and how can you move that forward? Use your data to strengthen and identify areas of additional needs and those tier 2 and 3 supports. And what do you need to strengthen that whole domain of careers?
So lastly, for me, there's just a couple resources here for you. The first one is if you are interested, I am putting together a statewide community of practice. This is for counselors and for DCAP members of their team to connect with other career and district teams across the state. The first one will be on that career information system, because I know that some of those have some great resources, but that we don't necessarily have the time to access. And so if you are interested in joining this community of practice, please fill out this form. It will not start until February. And we'll kind of look at how do we connect. The goal is where we're going to only spend maybe 10 minutes as a whole group, and then we're going to do some breakouts and allow you to really collaborate and work with those who are in a similar situation in terms of whether it's the same career information system or whether it's a similar size school. But please consider joining that. The webinar learning series link is right there as well that I mentioned earlier. And the last one up here is there is a computer science professional development week. It's scheduled for June at the University of Northern Iowa. There is a large grant. When I asked Justin Lewis, who is the computer science person at the DE, he said, I would love a huge counselor presence, because we know that this computer science area is big and we need to get some more information out there. And he is aware that counselors are the ones who can really help to facilitate this. And for many of this, it could actually be paid for completely. So if you are interested in that, please fill out that interest survey there and we'll get you on that list for more information. The last little bit is just some resources that if you're interested in them, they are right here on this screen. You're welcome to take a look at some of those. The resources for ICAP do include some elementary resources. And then of course there is the ICAP shout out. If your district is doing great things, I would love to highlight your district within our newsletter. Please fill that out. I have 2 districts so far that have filled it out. So those will be highlighted in the January edition. And so please take a look at that one. And then the last 2 are just self-evaluation tools that districts can use. And there are some future things coming out as well.
So, yeah, I want to thank you all for joining us today. That was a lot of information and you shared a lot of exciting things. Next month, Sue, do you want to share anything about Haley and ethics?
Sure. Haley Wyckoff is going to be joining us. For those of you that are ASCA members, you've probably seen her name. She has taken over the writing in the ASCA magazine from Carolyn Stone, and she is going to be sharing some of the current issues in ethics, some of the new requirements, the new standards, and then how all that connects to our role as school counselors.
Yeah, we hope you'll join us next month. I think it'll be some good information. And thank you again for joining us this month. This is exciting work. Like Future Ready is not one more thing. It really should be the thing that schools are doing to support this work. So in the chat, if you'd put in there what you're excited about as you move this Future Ready work forward. And also there's the post survey. So would encourage you to let us know what you're excited about and also just complete that post survey. I'm not sure if the QR code will work, but we can put the link in there for the survey in the chat, as well as you can click on it if you still have access to the slides. So thanks again for joining us. We hope that you will continue to support your students being future ready. That's not just your job as counselors, it's all of us in the school, but you play a big role in that. So thank you for all that you do. Appreciate the work that you're already doing, and hopefully we've given you some stuff to help move that work forward. So thanks for joining us. Have a great Friday.